Hello and welcome to the EDH Retcast, where we're all about Commander, data, and dad jokes. I'm Joey Schultz, and I'm joined by my puntastic co-host. He saw that there was a new Garfield Comics secret layer, which means now he can finally play Magic as Garfield intended. It's Matt Morgan.
Joey, did you know that Yoda does not believe in the existence of triangles? He's on record to say that there is a do angle and a do not angle, but there is no triangle.
So bad. You know what, Matt? I gotta say, that joke felt a little forced.
I think you're just being a little obtuse with me, is what's really happening.
No, I'm a cutie pie. I don't know. Oh, that one felt really forced, actually.
That one was not right. I can say that much for sure.
Yeah. No, the force is not strong with me. I am not one with the force here. All right, so let's move on to our episode here. Please don't linger in my embarrassment, Matt. Okay, buddy. In this episode, I think we're gonna torture ourselves a little bit. Is that the plan? I think that's what we're doing here, right?
I mean, reading the show notes that you sent over, yes. This is going to be a lot of disappointment because it's kind of the feeling that we got when a lot of these commanders that we're going to talk about, we saw them and we're like, that looks really cool. That is something innovative and exciting and new. And it sure wasn't.
These are some commanders that are kind of our good evidence of when innovation goes wrong. These are commanders that were trying something new, cool looking new abilities, but girl, they done flopped and flopped pretty darn hard. They looked interesting, but they just didn't connect for one reason or another. And maybe that is because of, like, with us personally, we felt like they didn't quite reach what we were hoping to, or just looking at the numbers, these commanders were trying something new, but they're at rank like 1,000 or less or things like that. So that is going to be what we're talking about today. I hope it is not too completely torturous for each of us to talk about these tremendous disappointments in our over the course of Commander's history.
Well, thankfully, it won't just be our own disappointments, but some of the community, like you said, that maybe the community just didn't latch on, or they were very excited about one thing and realized this actually didn't do what I was hoping it was going to do. So a lot of those types of commanders that we're going to go over today.
To keep on with the Star Wars joke that you opened with, basically these are the commanders that Obi-Wan Kenobi is yelling at, saying, "You were supposed to be the chosen one." Like, that's kind of the vibe here.
Yeah.
Although, as a quick clarity, I think it's important for us to state up front that we're not just talking about commanders that are disappointing in general, that let us down right away. You can check out our episode 314 for that. We already knew that Ulrich of the Kralin Horde was not it as soon as we saw it. That's a commander that wasn't even trying. Here we want to actually focus on commanders that kind of squandered their potential. That's sort of the difference, I think.
Yeah, Ulrich never passed the vibe check. People saw it and kind of knew instantly. At least these commanders that we're talking about, they showed some potential. There was at least some excitement or some amount of hype around them, because everybody gets excited about a lot of different things, but sometimes that excitement just fades really quickly. So this is going to be more focused not on the commanders that were innovating and succeeded. There's plenty of those out there, and there's plenty of commanders out there too that were just disappointments in general. This was ones that we kind of had to pivot a little bit on and change our expectations.
Yeah. Actually, what is, for good context of a commander that innovated but did succeed, what do you think is a good example of that, so we kind of get our bearings and understand the boundaries of this conversation, would you say? What's a commander that, this is something new, and you're like, oh, it worked?
One that I think should be definitely given a lot of credit, and it's not even innovative really when you think about it, because all it did was bring back an old mechanic on just how the game worked in general. But Yearlock of Scorched Thrash, it brought back mana burn, and it was so fun to see that happen. And just what would mana burn look like in today's game? Because mana burn changed 20 years ago. It's been so long since we've had that. So bringing that back and putting it in Jund, where you get some of these punishing colors, you get some really cool things to go into that deck. That was innovative. That was really fun to watch happen, and I've seen some really, really cool decks. And there's over 11,000 decks for Yearlock, so you know that succeeded on some level. These other commanders that we're going to talk about moving forward, though, they were not successful.
Yeah, that's what I love that example. I would almost even say Shorikai too. That was the first time we ever saw
Shorikai's a great example,
commander, and it's still within the top 100 commanders according to the ranks. So those are commanders that were trying out something new, and they definitely worked. So now that we've gotten our hopes up, let's crush them. Let's talk about commanders that were trying something new and didn't. I'll start us off here. This is one that was personally, to me, I felt so excited by it, which is really hard to do because this is a Jeskai commander, and I'm a Golgari Queen. This one, though, it did eventually let me down, and that's Leori Spark-Touched Hunter. I thought this was such a cool direction to take the Super Friends type of strategy. This is a 3-mana 3/3 with Flying and Vigilance. It's an elemental cat, and it says whenever Leori Spark-Touched Hunter deals combat damage to a player, you choose a Planeswalker type. So like Jace, Chandra, Elspeth, whatever. And until end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a Planeswalker of that type, you copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copies. This came out, and I believe the Commodore Guff precon, and it was so neat looking. It was so cool. Like, oh, you can build a deck not just around a bunch of Planeswalkers, but around one specific type of Planeswalker. That's freaking cool. However, it is now at rank 1,248 with not even 1,500 decks to its name. This one did not connect with people, and the other ways of playing Super Friends have just proven to be still more interesting to players out there, which is a tremendous crushing disappointment for me personally. I'm so sad.
Well, I think just in general, it not even Leori needing one specific Planeswalker, but just Planeswalkers have gotten less important in the past 3-4 years, I would say, in Magic design. Even you look at stuff like Karth the Lion, which was back from Modern Horizons, different color combination, but that was all about Planeswalkers too. And even then, like, that's seen like less than 4,000 decks. It's not a ton. Planeswalker decks in general, especially when they're dedicated to that, are really, really hard to pull off.
Well, and it also just became an issue of numbers. If you wanted to build that theme deck around like just one Planeswalker character, it turns out your options are so limited. There are 8 Elspeths now, there are 10 Teferis, 15 Jaces, and 22 Chandras. And there were fewer of each of those when Leori actually was printed, obviously.
Yeah.
But also, let's be honest, not every single one of those versions of those Planeswalkers is good enough to make the cut in the average EDH deck. But all of this basically forces you to only be able to build around Chandra if you're building Leori around a single Planeswalker. Chandra's kind of the only one with enough density to justify there. And that ultimately is going to limit creative interest if you don't get to pick your actual favorite character to build around and you feel like you must do just that one character if you're going to get a fully fleshed out deck.
Yep.
So the idea is novel, but there's no infrastructure to support that novelty, to support that concept. You end up having to mix and match Planeswalkers in the deck. And if you're going to mix and match Planeswalkers anyway, then you inevitably, as a deck builder, end up asking yourself, well, does this commander do enough compared to the other options I could be playing in the command zone? Is just copying 1 or 2 abilities per turn if things break your way, is that enough for a fulfilling and fleshed out deck? And the numbers kind of indicate that this commander didn't end up satisfying people.
Yeah, just there's not enough fuel because Wizards love to tell stories and they want to introduce new characters and bring things around that we haven't seen before. That means that there's less and less space for these old favorites to have 5-6 cards every 5 years like we used to have. And so, yeah, absolutely. Just the sheer competition for any given commander or any given Planeswalker, I should say, that's where everything really, really starts to get competitive. But the game and the format has gotten so much faster. And we've done a ton of episodes on how mana curves have gotten lower. So you don't really have time to let a Planeswalker sit out there for 3, 4, 6, 7 turns even, because the game has just gotten so much faster. And that's really where this whole strategy in general has really fallen behind. Like, you need to be able to get all your value right away. Otherwise, you're just falling behind because you're not getting enough soon enough. And so that's why first off, that's the biggest reason in my mind why Leori hasn't really taken off or never really got the attention that it deserved.
Yeah, that ultimately is probably kind of the final death knell for a commander like this. This commander, unfortunately, while it is still trying to do something novel, it isn't changing the dynamics of a Planeswalker strategy in the ways that it would need to keep up with today's very super explosive EDH world. This became a deck that, even though you want to build around just one type, you do still have to mix and match, and it is still so incremental that it isn't moving the needle on what other stuff Planeswalkers can do. I love you, Leori. I hope that you get better as time goes on, but clearly it didn't connect here to begin with. That's one for me, Matt. What about one that was a big letdown for you, that you were like, oh, it looked innovative, and then it was like, womp womp?
I mean, if you want to talk about a personal letdown, then I know that I'm a big Lord of the Rings homer. I love the set that they did for Tales of Middle-earth. And I can't fault very much in that set. That said, I can definitely fault Galadriel Elven Queen, because that commander, I love those precons. It was so much fun to play, but Galadriel Elven Queen was just a case of trying to do too many different things as part of the innovation. It was trying to innovate with, like, I want to say they were intending to kind of break ground with the voting, the politics of the game onto Galadriel, because there is the will of the council. You do a lot of voting and every player participates at the beginning of every combat as part of Galadriel's ability. But the conditions to get people to vote were like there was like 3 different hoops they had to jump through. You had to have the elf come down to have it happen, but then also there's +1/+1 counters. There was card draw. There was like 4 different archetypes in this precon and battling with this commander. You had to really focus down on one and hope that the Will of the Council ability did enough for you to like feel like you were contributing to the game.
Yeah, Galadriel Elven Queen, 4-mana Simic Commander, 4/5 Elf Noble, with Will of the Council, beginning of combat on your turn. If another elf entered the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for Dominion or Guidance. If Dominion gets more votes, the ring tempts you, then you put a +1 counter on your Ring Bearer. If Guidance gets more votes or the vote was tied, you draw a card.
It's a lot of words. It's a lot of words.
A whole lot of words for I didn't retain any of it. This wound up at rank 974. It's got 2,200 decks to its name, which might sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about a commander that's lingering around the 1,000 level mark. Safe to say that it did not actually really connect with people, especially considering its contemporaries within that same precon environment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. This precon was trying to do so many things at once. It was trying to do voting. It was trying to do elves. And I was so curious to see how they would do elves in a new setting that isn't just the way that Magic typically interprets elves, but then they kind of bungled it. It also needed to care about scrying. For some reason, the deck also cared about when you cast 5-mana plus spells as well. Like this precon was so scramble.
The precon was really weird, and that wasn't to say there weren't cool legends in that set either, or in that precon even, because I know Círdan was a lot of fun. My best friend has a Círdan deck that is one of the most absolutely hilarious decks to play against. But also Galadriel, who was supposed to be the face card of this precon, really didn't do a whole lot.
She didn't unify it, yeah.
There's an argument to be made that you could take any other legend in that precon and put it the face, and the deck's just better. And that stinks. That really, really stinks.
I need to care about elves and voting and scrying and 5-mana plus spells. And then for some reason, there's a Hornet Queen in this precon. It was a mess. It was just a mess.
It was a mess. Yeah. So I can put aside my love for Lord of the Rings and say Galadriel Elven Queen was kind of a disappointment with what it was trying to do.
Yeah, it had a big opportunity here. She was clearly trying something. I would have loved to see more voting stuff. I think that's a great untapped area of potential, but this definitely squandered the opportunity, which is such a bummer. I like these examples so far. We've got a whole bunch more to get to, but let's pause real quick, Matt, for a couple of shout outs before we move on.
Well, Joey, we're talking about commanders that love to innovate. Why don't we take a second to talk about some people who are innovating in just protecting your cards? And that's our amazing friends over at Dragon Shield.
I see what you did there. That's funny.
It's cheesy, but it's also true. So it's not really that cheesy.
Yeah.
But we got a chance to, in MagicCon Las Vegas, to look at their new Dragonlock deck boxes. It's the whole system. You've got the big box to hold all your deck boxes in there. And these boxes, they're amazing. They've got the detachable flap. They're compact enough that they're not going to take up a ton of space in your bags. And they just protect everything. They look great. They have a slot to feature your favorite commanders. So whatever fancy version of your commander that you got, they're going to show that off. It's so cool. I love these deck boxes. They're probably my favorite innovation in the card protecting space, along with their usual sleeves that are going to be just durable. They're going to last you forever. Like Dragon Shield just keeps winning, keeps innovating, and we love it. So if you want to get your hands on some of these innovations they have going on coming out this summer, make sure to head to dragonshield.com/EDHREC and use promo code EDHREC when you check out. Not only is that going to let them know that we sent you, but also supports the show at the same time. So do both. Innovate a little bit yourself at home. Go to dragonshield.com/EDHREC and use promo code EDHREC to get yourself a little discount. And thanks, as always, to Dragon Shield, not just for innovating, but for supporting the show.
The show is also brought to you by you, our phenomenal patrons at patreon.com/EDHRECcast. Supporting the show in free ways means everything. Reviews, likes, notifications, subscribing. We know not all who watch are subscribed, but also your support on Patreon really goes the distance. That's that extra push that helps us make sure that we hit our land drops, There's a panoply of perks over there, from Discord access to exclusive data. For instance, I recently published a video about the least popular commanders, and on Patreon, we have exclusive access to that full data breakdown if you want to check that out. So again, patreon.com/EDHRECcast if you'd like to take a look. And in addition to that, one of our favorite things here too is shouting out our patrons. So Michael Sunblum, big shout out to you. I hope that you always have removal when you need it. Okie doke, Matt. Let's get back to our topic here and talking about some other commanders that looked like they were going to be really innovative, looked like they were pushing the needle, trying out something new, maybe a thing that you've not yet seen before in those colors. And then once we gave them a chance, we were like, oh no, my day is ruined. Let's talk here. The next one that really hit me, it struck a big chord with me when I first saw it, and then I slowly turned my smile into a frown was Genn Arcanum Weaver from Commander Legends, a Mardu 3-mana human wizard 2/3 with a 3-mana activated ability where you pay the Mardu, you tap it, you sacrifice an enchantment, and you return target enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield. This has wound up with fewer than 3,000 decks. It's ranked 788 right now. This sounds so cool. We had not seen this in Mardu before. Mardu's usually so, quick aggro, sacrifice a bunch of tokens, stuff like that. And here we are playing around with enchantments, but also needing to revive them, to get rid of a bad enchantment that you have in play and get a huge 8-drop or 7-drop enchantment into play instead. In concept, I still think that Genn sounds neat. In practice, it's so much mana to do very, very little, and I'm so bummed, man.
Well, and it requires a lot of things to go right. It's my classic Reanimator problem, not yours, Joe, but mine, where you have to have the right combination of things where you need them to be in order for everything to be happening and really be effective. But yeah, this is a case of, I know the community was very excited to see Genn because there's all the excitement about everybody wanted to live the dream of putting out an overwhelming splendor and shutting down that one player. You had all the curses. There's a lot of cool stuff to be going on there, but it really didn't. This was a case of, I don't think just any individual was really disappointed with how Genn played in execution. I think there was whole swaths of people that were kind of disappointed with how this ended up playing.
Yeah. I'm just so bummed. That's all. I've become really bad at podcasting in this moment because all I have is disappointment, and I can't even really speak to it and put it into words.
Sorry. Yeah, just sighing and slumping in your chair, that doesn't make for very good TV or radio for that matter.
Yeah. And it's so funny because this is a commander that I feel like over time has gotten better options. We have, the Glimmer enchantment tokens, which would become an easier thing for Genn to sacrifice to bring back the Saga creatures from Final Fantasy, for instance. All right, cool. It sounds in theory really neat to summon Bahamut right back out of the yard or whatever. The issue is that as this commander has gotten better, we have also gotten better options that are becoming a lot more attractive to other people too. So at the time that this commander came out, it looked interesting, but then never could find its footing. And at the time that now it is even finding more toys that it could properly play with, it is still getting outpaced. The fact that it takes the summoning sickness, the 3 extra mana every time that you want to do this, there's a lot of safety caps on this commander that unfortunately are barring its way from actually having the impact in the game that you really want it to have. Just a couple of small tweaks could have made this commander into something truly remarkable, I think, but it is safeguarded in a lot of those ways. That just make the process so much more expensive than you need reanimation and enchanting stuff to be.
Well, I think the order of everything that happened with Genn also is a little backwards, because we got this and it was a little bit ahead of its time, because we had some sagas at that time, but the density of sagas that you want to be able to build around, we didn't really have quite yet. So that didn't help. But the saga creatures that we got in Final Fantasy, but even if we had just all the role tokens when Genn came out, you want that free fodder to be able to sacrifice. So people had tried Genn out. They didn't have a great time with it because we didn't have all the tools that we would have had today. So if Genn was released today, I think the reception would have been very, very different. I think people have already moved on by the time we got those incremental advantages of getting role tokens, saga creatures, all the type of toys we have now. So yeah, Genn just was released a little bit ahead of its time maybe, and that's maybe why the initial excitement didn't really last and people have kind of moved on.
I think that's a really good read on it. All right, that's one for me. How about one for you?
Yeah, so I know that I've been picking on blue a little bit so far. I'm going to continue to do so, and it's completely intentional. But Etrata the Silencer was a commander that I feel like the community really... They saw the text on the card, and they saw, okay, that player loses the game, and they thought, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin everything. Well, it really didn't. So this was 10 plus years ago at this point. It's been a while.
Don't say that, man.
I'm aging all of us here, but yeah. So Etrata the Silencer, it's 2 in Dimir, so blue and a black for a 3/5 vampire assassin. Etrata the Silencer can't be blocked, and then whenever Etrata deals combat damage to a player, you exile target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more exiled cards with hit counters on them, and then Etrata's owner shuffles Etrata into their library.
This commander looks so neat. The can't be blocked of it all is great, but also it provides an interesting deck building challenge. Can I manage to get these hit counters and then find a way around shuffling this commander into my deck? And there are neat potential solutions for that. In response to the trigger, using something like an Essence Flux to blink that commander, so then she comes back, she still has the ability to resolve, but she herself is a new game object, won't shuffle away. Or you play like Vanishing, an enchantment that lets you phase out the enchanted creature. There are ways to dodge that, but holy crap are those high hurdles that you have to jump in order to just exile a thing without losing your own stuff, in order to eventually, hopefully, maybe kinda sorta make someone else lose the game. I do think this looks like a very exciting challenge, but it is one of the most challenging challenges, is unfortunately the reality that we all learned.
Yeah, all the hoops that you had to jump through to make that player lose the game. Like hitting something 3 times, you don't get extra combats. There's a lot of stuff you have to do to make a trot actually happen. I would wager nobody actually ever lost the game to a Trot of the Silencer. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
Light up the comment section, everyone. Let Matt have it.
Let me know that. Yeah, let me know in the comments how many times you've lost to a Trot of the Silencer. I don't think it's that many. Like, it was a very difficult thing to do.
Well, and we can see that from the numbers. This is rank 1092. It has 1,873 decks to its name. This is low on the ladder. It looked really fascinating. It presents an interesting deck building challenge, which we're going to be interested in that. But as probably should be the case with an alternate win con or lose condition like that, it is difficult to do. Yeah. This one just ends up being so difficult to do compared to the other assassins that we've eventually gotten now. It's very outpaced.
Yeah, anytime you have an alternate win condition on a card, you're going to get people's attention. That's just going to happen because players love, okay, well, what kind of hoops do I have to jump through? But when you look at this compared to something like Ramses Assassin Lord, which came out way later, it's just so much easier. Like Ramses just says, when a player loses the game, if they are attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. Like, that's just so much easier. You just have to knock somebody out with an assassin and you win the game. Whereas you look at Etrata, like there's so much, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. And players realized very quickly Etrata just was not worth what could have been some really cool innovation that just later on got perfected.
Yeah, you know what also can kill you in 3 hits? A Voltron commander that's dealing commander damage. Like, that's kind of the other reality that we have to do. Yeah. Do you ever have those moments?
Dealing more than 3 a turn will win you the game.
Right. Do you ever have those moments in game where you're just like, oh, I've set up my super clever engine, I've got this, and I'll blink that, and my Panharmonicon does this, and I'm going to deal 12 whole damage. And then your next opponent goes and they're like, cool, I'll attack you for 30. Do you ever have that? I feel like that's kind of the reality for Etrata.
I feel like those are the games, when you and I play games, that's what happens, is you set up some like cute little engine, and then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to attack you with 30 heir apparents.
Yeah. No, I'm drawing from personal experience here. For absolute certain. Oh, goodness. Matt, is it okay if we talk about some Boros commanders? Is it alright if we do that for just
I feel like, I mean, you want to talk about things that are so 2016, like talk about Boros commanders is so 2016.
I feel like there's just got to be a whole section in this episode for what basically I'm going to call the Boros Kia Asylum, just the flop era commanders that were trying desperately to transform what was then the red-white consistent archetype of like, it always needs to care about combat or it usually cares about equipment. There was a lot of innovation happening for the red-white color combination, and so many of them fell flat that I feel like it would be cheating not to mention a bunch of the Boros legends that were attempting to move things around in Boros, but were so just dead on arrival. I'm thinking like Bel Borca, for instance, came out in Commander Legends. It could give you Impulse Draw and it would get bigger based off of stuff that got exiled that looked interesting. It's not. It has like fewer than 1,000 decks right now. Duke Older Raven Guard came out and it was giving your stuff Myriad, and I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. No one cares. No one plays it. Firesong and Sunspeaker even. Like, that's probably one of the more popular ones that we've got here, but it's still not that girl. It still kind of didn't do anything that Boros needed doing at the time.
Firesong and Sunspeaker, you've just summoned up so many paper boomers who are just like so triggered because like that was what the community, I think, truly wanted Boros to kind of pivot into, away from combat damage, away from equipment, and into something cool like, okay, my instant sorceries have a lifelink. That's something different. We had a chance to do Spell Slingers in Boros, and Firesong and Sunspeaker fell flat. And so many people brute forced that commander specifically.
I mean, it's got 4,000 decks, so like that's, you know what,
it's
that's
fine.
Respectable. It's fine, but it is also only fine, and it did not reinvigorate the archetype in the ways that it clearly needed at the time, in the way that, when Feather came out a little bit later, she actually moved the needle. Or even when Osgir came out a little bit later after that, that actually really started to reinvigorate and recharge an entire color combination. So Fire Song and Sunspeaker, it was doing fine for it, but then, I don't know, Duke Older got 1,500 decks. Belborca it has fewer than 200 decks. I misspoke earlier. No one cared about that. And they were trying so hard to make anything happen there. Probably the bigger disappointment for me is actually Neali, Sun's Vanguard. That's the 4-mana 3/3 human rebel. Attacking tokens you control a double strike, and whenever one or more tokens you control attack a player, you exile the top card of your library, and during any turn that you attacked with the token, you may play that card. That actually is a strong card. That is actually pretty interesting, but it's still aggro. So it only wound up with about 2,500 decks, rank 887. That precon, I feel like, kind of got just like breezed by. It almost seemed like no one cared because we had just been trained by a bunch of these Boros commanders to not really get our hopes up, which is really the disappointing lesson about the totality of all of these.
Boros, they've tried to do innovation quite a bit with what the color combination can do and everything. Mm-hmm. I remember the one that really finally stuck, and if you look at the top Boros commanders, it's not even one of the top Boros commanders anymore, because since then we've had so many banger after banger after banger. But when you look back and remember what Osgir the Reconstructor did at the face of that original Strixhaven Lorehold precon, it really was doing something cool. It was doing something sustainable. You're playing with artifacts and everything. And I'm going to throw out an example of innovation in the same deck that actually fell flat. And this is from personal experience, but Alabu Ancient Witness falls into this Boros, Lorehold, whatever you want to call it these days, color combination where it looked really cool. And I was really, really excited to try it out. And it just didn't do what I was hoping it would do. So it's 3 in Boros for a 4/5 legendary artifact golem, and it gives other artifact creatures you control haste. And then whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alabu deals X damage to any target, and you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. And this puts so many more requirements on what you were trying to do. So you need to rely on a bunch of mana rocks. Whereas Osgir, you sacrifice the artifact, you get them back, you do all of the different things. There's a lot going on that just made Osgir so much easier to fulfill this artifact heavy Boros deck. Alabu, there are a few too many hoops. I also put like hard mode on for myself when I built this deck. But man, I was really hoping that you could just like, okay, I'm going to go to combat, I'm going to one-shot everybody, and it's going to be really cool. That just never came to be.
Yeah, I've had some history of getting really messed up by an Alabu, but it definitely, you need to have the frame of mind of this is definitely a burn deck.
Yes.
Which means that actually the deck is not doing as much innovation as perhaps you were hoping for, because it is falling back into that same type of aggro plan that consistently we had seen across Boros over the years.
Yep.
The ones that have now finally stuck, like I think Ragost, Deft Gastronaut is a really great example of new Boros innovation that is working extremely well, and Jolly Balloon Man could be another. So like Matt, as you said, Osgir has actually been pushed down because since he did finally, I think, really kick that door finally open for good, now we've gotten a whole lot more of those that can actually honor the things that we want this color combination to do, as well as it getting the support systems that it needs for it to keep up with a lot of what the other colors are doing. But there were some early examples of what is this, who is this for? Like we had that for a couple of years and it was just like, no. So we can't not mention that huge gap in Commander's history, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Well, like Osgir, there was a time where everybody thought there's no way they're going to make a Boros commander that is going to be more popular than Osgir. Like it was competing at the time with some of the what we still think of as classic popular commanders in the format, even years and years later. Osgir is now the number 18 most popular Boros commander,
what happened?
Not just commander in general. Yeah, what happened? Like, and Osgir has less than 5,000 decks now. There used to be a little bit more, but like it's been a while. People have moved on to other things. But man, there are legends like even Lorehold the Historian, which is from a set that just came out. Has over 7,700 decks. Like that's pushing twice as many decks as Osgir, which we thought for a time was going to be untouchable. And now there's commanders that are less than 2 months old that are already outpacing it. That's just wild to think compared to, when Osgir first came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like even if Osgir has fallen down, it still had its moment, right? Like that at least, it had its time in the sun and it has paved the way in a way that we got to honor that. But, Yeah, I'm very happy to celebrate Boros and Lorehold's wins. I'm so happy that we're past the point of getting into those Gerard Weatherlight heroes, which have not even 500 decks to their name. He's like rank 2000 in the data. Like, that was the period of time that we were in for a while. It was the Dark Ages, okay? And I'm glad that we're past that point now. But it is obviously a thing that we need to mention in this particular episode of these attempts at innovation that just fall flat on their face kind of right away.
Yeah, and that's not saying like we can't celebrate at the same time the innovation that did happen, but man, it's
took a minute.
It just took a minute. Yeah, just took a minute. So before we get into more of those commanders, let's take a break real quick. Let's challenge the stats because I know there's a lot of data out there. We want to challenge it and we don't want to take a critical eye towards it. So let's take a break, challenge stats, and then we'll get back into it.
Love it. All right, you know what? Since we had just been talking about red and white, I will start with my challenge here. I'm taking a pretty critical look at Quintorius History Chaser, and I actually kind of have two challenges for this one, but Quintorius History Chaser, that's the form in a Planeswalker commander that is from the new Lorehold Precon, 5 loyalty, and it can give you 3/2 spirits when stuff leaves your graveyard. You can +1 to discard a card, and then draw 2 cards and mill a card, and -4 to give your spirits double strike and vigilance until end of turn, and of course this Planeswalker can be your commander. The primary thing that I'm going to challenge here, the real thing to focus in on, is the card Shenanigans, a 2-mana red sorcery that will destroy an artifact, but most importantly, it has Dredge 1. So instead of drawing a card, you can mill 1 card and get that thing out of your graveyard into your hand. With the number of rummage spells that are in the average Quintorius list, and the fact that Quintorius himself is a rummager, I think a dredge spell is a godsend in this deck, and just make sure that at any time that you need it, you can get a 3/2 spirit token off of Quintorius triggered ability, which is huge. You need to protect this guy. This is a fantastic way to do it super easily, but it's only in like 30% of lists right now. This card costs a quarter. It will be your best friend in that deck. I strongly recommend making room for it. But while I'm here, I'm also going to say that I think the Precon effect is in pretty strong force on the card Ceaseless Conflict, which I just think is a really bad wrath. I don't think that this is very good. A 5-mana kill all creatures, but you make a 3/2 spirit for each of your own non-token creatures that you destroyed this way. I played this Precon a bit. I hated this spell every single time. 74% of players still running it is wild to me. When you play this and you get no spirits off of it, it feels like trash. So I would rather play like 1 mana for a Blasphemous Act every time. If you're going to upgrade this deck, find a better board wipe in my opinion. But my official challenge is that Quintorius needs to get up to some shenanigans.
I always love getting into some shenanigans. And one thing that one of our listeners did was send us an email to edhrecast@gmail.com with a challenge. So if you want to get into those types of shenanigans, that's how you get in touch with us. So Adam Lay sent us an email, and thank you, Adam, for the email, but also thank you for this challenge that it's highlighting a card that both Joey and I really love, and so we're always looking for excuses into playing this card more. And that card that Adam sent us an email about is the card Astarion's Thirst, and says Astarion's Thirst is wildly underplayed in a specific deck. It appears in only 67 of the 6,500 plus decks as of 5/15, and that deck is Silverquill the Disputant. So Silverquill the Disputant is 2 and a black and a white for a 4/4 Elder Dragon with flying and vigilance, and has each instant and sorcery you cast has Casualty 1, where you can sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater, and if you do, you copy that spell. So Astarion's Thirst is one of my favorites utility / removal / it just does so many different things type of spells. It's 3 and a black for an instant that says exile target creature and put X +1/+1 counters on a commander creature you control, where X is the power of the creature exiled this way. Adam goes on to say the ability to casualty the spell to exile 2 creatures and dump a load of +1/+1 counters on your flying vigilant commander is amazing. Also, Astarion's Thirst is just underplayed in most decks with black containing flying colors anyways, which I agree. Astarion's Thirst is such a good card. It is a little expensive. It's 4 mana, but if you're copying this, you're getting 4 extra mana worth. Like, you don't want to just copy like a Fatal Push. Like, you don't care about Casualty on that. But Casualty on the big fancy spells, that's where you get a ton more value for the low cost of just like 1 throwaway token. Absolutely. This is a great challenge. So thank you, Adam, for the email. Play Astarion's Thirst if you're in those Silverquill decks. You'll thank us later. And thank Adam later, too. And thank you for the email.
I love this. Astarion's Thirst is a lot better than it looks.
It's so good.
Especially if this thing is copying it. Yeah, I'll sacrifice a token, which is what my deck wants to do anyway, to get rid of the 2 things that you have that could block my commander, and then I'm going to chunk you for 12. Cool. Sounds good to me. That sounds great. I'm absolutely way into it.
Yeah, so thank you to Adam, but also too, if one of the best ways to get your hands on all the cards we're talking about today is by going over to cardsphere.com/EDHRECast. It's just got the most active trading community over there. If you're trying to get cards, you're trying to get the base versions of cards, you're trying to get the blinged out, most U version of the card. You can get all those over at cardsphere.com. That's just an amazing community over there. So many things are going on. You're getting cards so much faster than any other outlet these days. It's just kind of wild to me how quickly you can get cards, especially around pre-release season. If you want to be the first person to get those cards, you don't open one yourself at a pre-release. People are shipping cards right after pre-release. So make sure you check out cardsphere.com/EDHRECast and get trading today.
Yeah, I'm really happy that service is putting the trading back into a trading card game. The cards makes me really happy. I like it a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay, since I was just saying, oh, here's the thing that makes me happy, let's now talk about commanders that make me sad. I'm going to segue here.
What a segue.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Matt, but it's been too long in this episode for me to have not yet mentioned Gimbal Gremlin Prodigy. Who I think let us all down. Who let us all down real hard. This looks interesting. This commander looks like it should do something, and I just don't feel like it does. It's got 3,000 decks in the database right now, which is like inching a little bit higher. It's found some type of an audience, but I don't know. So Gimbal Gremlin Prodigy was the head of a precon, a 5-mana Temur commander, a 4/4 Gremlin Artificer that gives your artifact creatures trample, and at the beginning of your end step, what is this text box here? Create a 0/0 red Gremlin artifact creature token, put X+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens you control. So this sounds like, all right, I need to care about a lot of clues and a lot of, I don't know, blood tokens and stuff like that, so that you can make big stuff, and then maybe you could even proliferate those counters. I think that's what it's trying to do, but in practice, you occasionally make like a 2/2, and I'm so bummed, and I'm so mad. Like, Temur is already a difficult color combination for me to feel personally engaged by, so this one was like gesturing towards, hey, I haven't seen this before. Usually Temur is going to care about big stompy creatures or interesting spell work. Now it needs to care about artifacts in this way, and then you play it, and you're like, oh, and that's the sound that the deck makes is, that's it. Just can't say that Gimbal really did it for me. So I feel really bad about this one.
This one, I was kind of waiting to see how long it would take for you to bring up Gimbal, because anytime you have the face card of a pre-constructed deck, that carries a little weight and puts expectations on that card to do something. And when I was trying to play around, we don't get a lot of token synergies in Temur colors. So I think Gimbal maybe it was put up to an unreasonable standard, because you're making one token, and yes, you're in green, you can find ways to double that, but this just didn't do enough. It looks like it could have been cool. I don't know, this feels like it was just outclassed by everything that was just being done across the board in the format. Like, I don't remember the last time I even saw a Gimbal deck in the wild.
Yeah, and I think the other problem is that it ends up being really tedious, because you have to keep track of so many different types of cardboard in the first place. So it becomes hard for the deck to actually shape around any individual strategy, because if you have multiple cards that are making foods or whatever, well, that becomes redundant. You only need one specific food for Gimbal to count that as a differently named artifact token. So then you want to, go towards like Tago, which is making a rock, and no one else is doing that. But then those things don't necessarily all synergize with each other. It can take a while for them to actually converge or coalesce into an actual final push of winning the game. This one, like, I compare this to what is the Esper Urza that just on your end step is going to make a huge construct that just gets bigger for all of their constructs. And I compare the Gimbal against that, and I'm just like, girl, what are you doing here?
Urza was such a wild phenomenon in terms of marketing, because I remember watching the preview stream, and they're talking about the Urza versus Mishra precons from Brothers War. And they pitched it as, okay, Urza's the go wide deck. You're going to make a bunch of tokens, and you're going to go wide with some smaller tokens. And Mishra, that's the go big precon. You're making 4/4s. And then when you actually played the decks against them, Urza was making 8/8s every turn, and Mishra was still making a single 4/4. And it was so silly, because like, not only did Mishra not go big, but Urza got to go wide and big. And so I was like, this is very unfair.
Right. For Gimbal to make an 8/8, which is a thing that Urza just does by accident because you have mana rocks.
As a whoopsie.
Gimbal needs 8 differently named tokens to even gesture towards the thing that Urza's doing naturally, and Urza's constructs can still get bigger and bigger and bigger. This isn't just an issue of Gimbal's underpowered by comparison. It's the fact that this was trying to do something new, but it's sort of like that Galadriel example from earlier, was trying to fit a lot of different things into a single box. You need to care about a lot of different types of tokens. You need to care about artifact creatures. You need to care about +1 counters. Are you doubling tokens? Are you increasing the counters? It was trying to do so many things at once.
No, nobody's doing any of those, Joey. Nobody's doing any of that.
Yeah, as our first Gremlin Artificer commander, I just felt like, girl, there's so much that you could have done, and none of it is making sense flavorfully, and none of it is really hitting in gameplay either. So Gimbal, you let me down, man. You let me down.
Yeah. So one that I think I want to bring up here that I thought could have been really, really cool, especially with the set that it was in. So Assassin's Creed, it was kind of a weird set, but there were still some really, really cool legendary designs in there. One that I was really curious about when I first saw it was Cleopatra Exiled Pharaoh. It's the Golgari. It's 2/4 human noble, and has this ability where at the beginning of your end step, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target legendary creatures. And then also whenever a legendary creature you control with counters dies, draw a card for each counter on it, and then you lose 2 life. I thought this was a really, really cool way to care about legends and get some +1/+1 counter synergies at the same time. Turns out, not that long after Assassin's Creed came out, we got Final Fantasy, and we got like 5 legends that just like straight outclassed what Cleopatra's trying to do and did it so much faster. Like Genova was the huge one, but Cleopatra, I felt kind of bad because I wanted to be excited about it. And I think it's still in like a good amount of decks, like in the 99, but it's number 968. There's 2,200 decks, which is not all that many.
No.
I feel bad because like this could have been a really, really cool design, but it just got outshined almost instantly in the eyes of the community.
That's a really good point. The Genova comparison, she kind of took the spotlight instead, didn't she? And I built a Genova deck. And
yes.
I didn't lose a single game when I was playing it.
You built a Genova deck and you thumped literally everybody. I remember you played at, like, was it MagicCon last year? MagicCon Vegas?
Yeah, and it was stupid. It was a stupid deck.
It was really dumb. I remember getting beat down really bad.
Yeah, just because she would also scale with how many counters that she puts and then also draw you a butt ton of cards. Cleopatra still reads interestingly to me, but I think you really hit the nail on the head here. This became a commander that was more interesting to put in the 99 of decks as opposed to being at the head of its own deck. So even though it was trying to push forward some new innovation of we care about legends, specifically in Golgari, it still ultimately got subsumed by Kethis, which is the Abzan that cares about legends. It still got subsumed by other 5-color Legends Matters decks instead. So even though it was trying to stake on its own, it never really got the chance to find a foothold.
Which it's just unfortunate because I feel like that's going to happen a lot just moving forward. We're going to get some really, really cool design, but maybe even in the same set in some instances, you're going to just have something that's just going to be the big splashy mythic going over the top of something that's actually cool design. Like that's going to happen a lot, especially once we get into these sets like Marvel, where there's going to be a massive density of legendary creatures in there. It means that everything's competing and there's only so much creative capital players have with every single set. So not only like do we get an accelerated set release schedule, but there's just that many more legends in each set too.
Yeah. All right, Matt, you've picked on some blue stuff over the course of this episode. I think it's time for me to do this. And I was actually debating, I don't know if this really counts as eligible for this episode, because I do think that this commander technically did find an audience, but this is more about how she let me down personally. All right, so I want everyone to understand that. I'm about to be a little bit biased here.
This is Bitter Biscuits time.
Yes, exactly. I feel like I have to mention Tasha the Witch Queen here. Tasha the Witch Queen was such a personal affront to me specifically. She was the 5-mana Dimir Planeswalker commander from Baldur's Gate, and she says whenever you cast a spell you don't own, you create a 3/3 black demon creature token. She's got a +1 to draw a card, and then for each opponent you exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from their graveyard, and you put a page counter on those cards, and then a -3, you may cast a spell from among cards in exile with page counters on them without paying its mana cost. So all right, this is the type of thing that we have seen before, but at the time we'd only seen it with like the mono black Gaunty type of designs. This was moving it into now both black and blue, where we cared about stealing our opponent's stuff, and in this case, Tasha would give you 3 3s as a reward for that. I loved the idea of this. I built this deck because my mom also plays Commander and her name is Tasha, and we as a family all just freaking hated the experience of playing this Commander so much because it's so many hoops. It's the same stuff that you had been describing with like Etrata earlier. The hoops to even make 1 3/3 are kind of wild.
This is definitely a situation where like the amount of time for the innovation to come to fruition, it's the same thing we talked about with Leori. Like you need several turns to sit there and like first this needs to happen and that takes time. Then you need this to happen and that also takes some more time. So you spend like 4 or 5 turns setting up and then like finally you start to get some payoff for that. And just, I ain't got time for that. Nobody does. Like everybody's ready to get their value and move on. And all these Planeswalkers, they could be doing some of the coolest stuff out there. Nobody's going to care because it takes so much time to get those payoffs to start going.
This is a planeswalker, which means you must defend it. You also need to mill your opponents before you play her so that she has any stuff to exile from their graveyards, because you also need to plus her first. You can't play her and then use the -3. It doesn't do anything the first time that you see, which means you are now leaving her vulnerable for a round, and then eventually she could cast something, or the rest of your deck is probably trying to steal stuff from your opponents as well. But then that's not necessarily converging with the mill plan. And your reward for all of this is to get like a 3/3 sometimes.
Yeah. And potentially and 3/3.
Potentially and 3/3. I've played against Tasha, I've played with Tasha several times, and all of those games have always wound up being like 16 turns minimum, which is to say well over 2 hours. And that was the ultimate disappointment, is that the recipe of this commander, while it still was gesturing towards something so fascinating and interesting, was just needed to default into this control style that would just make a game into a little bit more of a slog compared to the excitement here. Because that's the other problem with stealing stuff from your opponents, with those steal their cards strategies, is that now you have to make your opponent's elf deck and that person's spellslinger deck cooperate on your board, where those things have nothing in common with each other. It takes so long to make that converge and move into a final push of the game. So Tasha has 5,000 decks to her name right now. She's found an audience for sure, but dang it, this one was a big, crushing disappointment for me personally. This was my Star Wars prequel, okay? This was not a Katy Perry 143 where we knew it was going to be a flop upon arrival. This was something that we had reason to believe could be good, and it still let me down so much.
I'm not the audience for that joke. I trust you that it was pretty clever, though. I hope it was.
This is my new Azuri rant. Like, let's be so real.
Okay, so that puts in perspective. That's a deep cut, Joey, with the Azuri rant, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Well, let me get my last one in here that I wanted to talk about, and this one I know it was from a secret layer, so just it was harder to find than most of these other legends that we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. But Edgin Larcenous Lutenist, or Bone Beguiling Balladeer, whatever you want to call them. There's universes within, universe without versions. Mm-hmm. But it was from the Dungeons & Dragons movie Secret Lair. And you get Chris Pine on a card. Very handsome. I love that. But everything about the card itself, as just how it operates, doesn't do anything. So it has text on the card. It says each non-land card in your hand without foretell has foretell, and its foretell cost is equal to its mana value reduced by 2. And then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, goad target creature and opponent controls. It looks cool in theory. You have a keyword on there. It's you get to be goading creatures. In execution, it's like the null rod of commanders. It doesn't do anything.
No,
what are you trying to do with it? Does not yet. Whatever you want to say. This commander, I've seen it 3 times. It did diddly. I have to stay PG with how much I'm describing how little this commander actually does. It like the foretell, you get to foretell everything, cool, but you still have to pay the cost later. Like you're just paying. I don't know. Like this card, like. I'm just going to like stumble over, and it's not good radio for me just dunking on Edgin doing jack. This is the most devastating insult I've ever heard from you. It has text on the card, period. Like that was so like just you describing a thing that was just like, yeah, there's words there. It doesn't mean it's doing stuff for it. That is so just because there's words on a card doesn't mean it actually has any effect on the game. Like yes, technically it goes in your command zone. It gives you like, this is basically like 2 prismatic pipers in your command zone. That's what this commander does. This is your Azuri rant. Holy shoot, I love this. We saved the personal one. It very well could be. And it's like this is like the card is like they're like $10-15 for both versions of this card. Yeah. Save yourself the money. Like go buy yourself Chipotle instead. That's a better use of your long-term and like financials than buying this commander. Wow. How do you really feel? This is amazing. Yeah, and clearly it didn't land very high. Less than 2,000 decks here, rank 1,060. And it would almost be like, I could expect that since this is a harder to get card, that might have been part of the reason why it isn't necessarily landing. But I do think that it has some of that same pattern that we've noticed a couple of times throughout this episode, where these abilities are all trying to squash a lot of stuff into one deck, and those things don't necessarily cooperate with each other very handsomely. Like the foretell stuff
looks interesting at first, but then you have to care about your second spell, and you also care about goading your opponent's stuff. The direction's a little bit foggy. It's a little bit unclear what it is that you need to be pointing towards here. And I could see this deck, I don't know, making a couple of game actions happening, but ultimately sort of feeling like it spins its wheels is probably an impression that I get immediately once I start imagining what the cards look like on the board.
Yeah, the second ability is the only relevant part of like making this a card. Like the best use case for Edgin is putting it in a frame and putting it on your wall because you think it's a cool looking card. You really liked the movie. You like Chris Pine. Every other in-game use for this card, just do something else. Do something else with your time.
Oh my word. I love how much you hate this that I almost don't want to even end this episode. I just want to hear you rave about this.
But like I can't. It's not even like I haven't seen this before. Like I've seen this deck. I've played against this deck several times, and it has never like done anything relevant.
I'm so bummed by that too, because the play from Exile strategy is interesting. You've got those Keeper of Secrets style of cards that can deal damage when you cast those things from Exile. So in theory, I feel like I could see how like as a deck, I think I see what the pile of cards looks like, but in the game actions, I feel a little bit uncertain of what its maneuvers are going to be. And I would love to be proven wrong here. I would love to play against this, but as you said, you've had experience playing against it, and it has not succeeded in your case, and it feels I can see why it's disappointed you. But
the best case scenario is we go to MagicCon Atlanta in the fall, and I sit down and I play like 5 games against people who just like, I heard you complaining about Bone or Edgin, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to prove you wrong. That would be the best case scenario. And like, if it's me versus 3 Edgins, cool. At least people are listening to the show. Listeners, make me feel really silly. Let's play an all Edgin pod.
Yeah.
Well, not all Edgin. I'm not playing it.
Yeah. All bone pod and tell Matt get boned. Like that's what needs to happen. And I think that's the note that we got to close out on. That was magnificent.
Yeah, consider us beguiled.
That's how deeply these commanders have hurt us, though. Like we were reliving some trauma here. The commanders that we were so excited by. We look at these and we're like, I've never seen that before. That looks so cool. And then you play the game with them and you're like, I still haven't seen it before. It didn't do anything. Like that was this episode.
Oh, this is
it was
cool.
painful.
I've never seen a commander do this before. You play the game, still haven't seen it done before.
So that means we've got to hear from all of our listeners and viewers out there about their commanders that they had such high hopes for that then just let them down. What were the commanders that were gesturing towards a cool new strategy that you had not ever seen before, but that didn't quite pan out? Let us know your thoughts below. Matt, this was an absolute riot. I might have to build an Edgin Bone deck just to play against you myself.
I mean, if you want to bone yourself over that way, you are welcome to bone yourself, that way and waste your time.
Get boned. All right. With that, let's call this episode to a close. Matt, if folks want to find you online to let you know about their Edgin deck lists, where can they torment you?
Well, if you want to tell me about your bone being not baloney, you can reach out to any social media platform there is. It's all the same at Mathimus55, whether it's Instagram, Blue Sky, all that kind of fun stuff. And don't forget, we are so happy to continue to work with Dragon Shield. They have some amazing releases coming out this summer, whether it's the deck boxes that are just amazing. We can't say enough about them. Or just you want the old classics. You want the reliables with all their sleeves that are going to give you the best protection out there. So no matter what you're putting in the cards, you can bone yourself over with not using Dragon Shields, or you can just use Dragon Shield to protect all of your cards, protect your collection, keep it all good. Head to dragonshield.com/EDHREC and use promo code EDHREC when you check out to get yourself a little discount at the same time.
And you can find me everywhere online, from Instagram to Blue Sky at Joseph M. Schultz online. You can find the cast online at EDHRECcast. Consider hitting up our Patreon if you enjoyed what you see or you want some exclusive data. And of course, we want to give one last shout out to Cardsphere as well. If you want to trade into an Edgin so that you can personally torment Matthew Morgan, then you can get one of those sent your way over at cardsphere.com. Fantastic community for trading a bunch of cardboard. Folks, we'll be back at you next week with more data and insights. But until next time, remember, EDHREC your deck before you wreck your deck.